Most Nigerians have a brother or a sister, or at least a cousin, in the UK, US, or Canada. That's the big boys and girls that send money back home and always return for dirty December. Now, entire families are scattered across different countries, with those abroad doing everything they can to bring their loved ones over as quickly as possible. You see, the funny thing is... Oh, whoa, sorry about that. This is much better. So, the funny thing is, as much as Japa has become a good thing now, most Nigerians actually love Nigeria, but have lost faith over one thing or the other. Most people actually lost faith after the 2020 incident at the toll gates. But there are many other reasons that have caused people to reduce national trust over time. There are many things I'm not allowed to say. If not, they can bring my video down on YouTube. But name them in the comments if you know them. There are many incidents in northern Nigeria. There's some about student girls. There are some about cattle. And some about other animals that somehow managed to swallow huge sums of money that were meant for national projects. Because of these and many other reasons, Nigerians are forced to seek sanity and progress in other nations. So yes, we made it out against all odds. But at what cost? They told us money doesn't grow on trees abroad, but what they didn't tell us is what we'll lose in the process. This video is to discuss the negative effects of Japa, and this is not me complaining about anything, because although a glass is half full, it's also half empty, and the end of every race is just the beginning of another one. So this is what we face after successfully achieving that goal of migrating to our dream countries, the countries filled with possibilities and potential. When we use the term racism in Nigeria, I think it's said with a pinch of salt. Like maybe we hear about the George Floyd incident or Rodney King or any other one that managed to make his way to the news or social media. So yes, we all know that it happens. And it surprises us that some people can hate at such magnitude but without a valid reason. But what we often don't realize is that racism isn't always obvious. It's not always about verbal attacks or police brutality or hate crimes. Sometimes it's silent. It could be hidden in policies, in systems, in job denials or job applications, because I don't know why it's legal for you to ask me in a job application not only if I'm black, but if I'm black African or black British before I apply for a job, and you claim that it's for inclusion. Meanwhile, in my head, if you want to include, then you should hire and not ask me my race before you consider. But it's not just that. It's also the obvious stares at the bus or train stations, or the store attendant that is nice to every other customer but changes to a mean person when it gets to your turn. For many Nigerians who japa, their first encounter with racism is not someone shouting hatefully at them on the streets. It's more subtle. It doesn't even feel like racism at first. It's like walking into a job interview fully prepared, but being denied because you don't have local experience, or struggling to rent a house because the landlord prefers someone who fits better in the neighborhood, or like being followed around in a supermarket or a store because they assume you might steal something. There are forms of institutional or systemic racism that build entire systems and processes that put certain groups at a disadvantage, either in a country or a corporate organization. It's why, despite having the same qualifications as a white counterpart, a black person will have to work twice as hard before being considered for the same opportunity. Imagine sending out 50 job applications and getting only 5 callbacks, and then realizing something in common about all successful applicants: they don't look like you. Then there's indirect racism, the kind that it's hard to prove, it's even hard to fight against, but it's just as damaging. It's like when you ask a question at work after they say no question is stupid, and then they answer your question like you don't know anything about anything. It's like when people tell you, wow, your English is so good, like they expect less from you. Or like when you and your white friend goes to a store and he's treated warmly, but when it gets to your turn, you're treated with cold suspicion. One of the challenges for Nigerians abroad is that back home, we're not used to looking out for these signs. Most of us don't experience racial bias because we're surrounded by people that look like us. But when we step foot in a different country, we become the other ones, and the realization is very shocking. It takes time to realize that racism isn't only about extreme hate. Sometimes it's about being neglected. Sometimes it's about being made to feel invincible or being overlooked when it comes to different things. And when you start noticing these things, it's hard to unsee them. You know, in movies, when a black guy enters an elevator and then the white lady clenches her purse tightly, those scenes are based on real life events, I must say. That is currently my best Instagram video by miles, and looking closely at it, the interaction is mainly from Nigerians who can relate easily to it because, like I said in the intro of this video, most Nigerians have a brother or a sister or at least a cousin in the UK, US or Canada. That video captures the reality of so many Nigerians right now. And like I said in the intro as well, as a glass is half full, that same glass is also half empty. So while some people can relate to the video and see it as a dream come true, and they're praying for themselves or their kids to have such experiences, some other people are so quick to point out the negative side and see the painful reality of it. As much as I would like to call these people haters, I can't deny that there's deep truths in what they are saying. So I'll tell you a story that happened. A close friend of mine and his wife were struggling with childcare in a new country where they had no family to rely on. Although this guy was reasonable enough to tell his employers his challenges and the times he'll be available to work, he noticed over time that he stopped getting work altogether. As you could have guessed by now, it's a shift-based work. And shift-based work is easy to tell your employers, I won't be available this time and I'll be available this time, and then get work. But in his case, it was just different. So after a while of practically being jobless, he got a hold of his boss and tried to get answers. And the boss told him stories about when he too had his own kid at an early age and had to manage childcare and work. This story basically just told me how important it is to have your family around you. I mean, there are other moments that should be effortless, like celebrating birthdays or holidays, or just having Sunday lunch together as a family. This suddenly turns into logistical nightmares filled with visa applications, expensive flights, and time zone differences instead of easy road trips. And that's when you realize that for all the progress you've made, there's always a part of home that's so far out of reach. Imagine your mom turns 60 and you can't be there to celebrate because you can't get time off work or you can't afford a ticket. Or imagine missing your sibling's wedding because your visa was denied. These moments add up and they remind you of what you left behind. So if you've gotten here, I appreciate you. But what I would really appreciate is if you can subscribe to my channel. It will really motivate me to keep dishing out more content like this one, and that way you can keep watching more of my beautiful content. And yeah, it's a win-win. So thank you for watching, and please subscribe. Peace. Relocation isn't just a decision, it's an investment, and an expensive one at that. For most families, the cost runs into tens of millions of naira. Sometimes even more depending on the size of your family. From visa applications to flights, proof of funds, rent deposits, and settling expenses, it's a financial commitment that not everyone can make. Now here's the thing. The people who often japa are people who are not struggling back home. Many of them are professionals, people who have worked for years, climbed the career ladder, built businesses, and created a level of comfort for themselves. Despite their success, they make the difficult decision to leave, knowing fully well that all the success they've built through the years will be left behind. And I mean everything. The house that they built for years, sold. The cars, furniture, and property that they carefully acquired, sold. The businesses that they worked so hard to establish, left behind. They packed their lives into a couple of suitcases and then they move into a new country where all their years of experience mean next to nothing. In many cases, these skilled professionals struggle to find jobs that fits their level. Back in Nigeria, they were managers, engineers, doctors, business owners, but in the new country, they may end up doing survival jobs just to stay afloat, taking on roles far beneath their qualifications, knowing fully well that they're working their way back from the bottom again in life. And for many, this process takes years, and that's why some people refuse to take these routes, and that's another thing. It can be very detrimental. I know of another story. It's a guy, highly skilled, qualified, and determined. He refused to take on any roles that are beneath his level. He believed he had worked too hard in Nigeria to start all over from the bottom again. So he kept waiting for the perfect opportunity. He kept waiting and waiting and waiting and applying for jobs, of course. Months passed and the financial strain started affecting his marriage. What was supposed to be a fresh start abroad became a nightmare filled with arguments, quarrels, disagreements, and eventually the wife left him. It's a painful reality that many Nigerians have to face when they come abroad. Swallowing your pride and going for that job just to make ends meet, or waiting for the perfect job that may never ever come. Beyond the financial struggles, there's also the mental and emotional weight of starting all over. Imagine after spending 10, 15 or 20 years building your career, only to find yourself feeling invincible, undervalued and unheard in a foreign land. The feeling of being somebody in Nigeria but then being nobody abroad is a feeling that affects Nigerians. It can lead to frustration, self-doubt and even depression. When we talk about Japa, we often celebrate all the wins, but what we don't talk about often are the sacrifices, the struggles, and the painful process of starting all over from scratch. For those who have the resilience to push through, the rewards may eventually come. At the end of the day, life is about giving up something for a better one. We left home for better opportunities, for a better future, but home never really left us. The question is, was it worth it? For me, it's 100% worth it. And that's why I did another video telling you why I came here. And then I did another video telling you how I came here. So if you want to know the why, click on this video. And if you want to know the how, click on this video. So what are you waiting for? Go ahead, click, 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 click.